Vanessa of the Property Tribes Forum, welcoming you to this interview where we're going to be talking to mortgage broker Lisa Orme on the very thorny topic of no money down deals. And before we start, Lisa, I want to make a clear distinction, because there's no money down using lender finance and there's no money down methods that don't involve a lender. We're going to be talking about no money down using lender finance. And Lisa, in your opinion, are there any legitimate ways of using lender finance, 100% finance, to buy a property in the UK?
No. So that's the interview. No, there isn't. Not with any of the main high street buy-to-let lenders. That's the key.
You sound very clear in that. A lot of people seem to say that there's lots of loopholes and grey areas, and I don't believe there is, but you seem to be confirming that.
Yeah, the very fundamental thing is that your actual purchase price needs to be declared to the lender, and all of their terms and conditions and criteria make it quite clear that any discounts, incentives, cashback, sub-sales all must be declared. And if they were declared, then they would lend on the lower value, which is your actual purchase price, which is back to square one, is the price that you need to be declaring. If you don't declare that, it's classed as non-disclosure, and that could be deemed to be mortgage fraud.
Well, we'll talk about the consequences of that in a moment, but if I play devil's advocate, I regularly get contacted by companies that say they've gone to barrister level to get clearance for their scheme. When I ask them to talk me through it step by step, they're very reluctant to. Would you still be suspicious of a company claiming to have gone to a barrister for approval?
Yeah, definitely. The reason is that barristers won't get into grey areas. They will ask you, or I should say it is more grey areas really, it depends which way you look at it. They will only answer very, very specific questions, and most of the questions that they tend to get asked are more around the CML guidelines, and who declares what, who says what at the conveyancing stage, to protect the solicitors that are involved, rather than protecting the actual client themselves. And it is the client whose name is on the mortgage, and it is them that is declaring the false purchase price of the property. So it's not the solicitors that will get done for mortgage fraud, it's the client and the applicant.
Now, one of the signs that a no money down deal, an illegitimate one, might be being done is that you have to use the company's broker and solicitor. Now, from my perspective, a property transaction by law has to be transparent to all parties, so why can't I use any solicitor or mortgage broker that I choose?
Well, that's because they've got mortgage brokers and solicitors that they have either convinced themselves or each other that the way that they transact that business is not breaching any particular rules. And quite often what happens is that those people are only interested in protecting their own backs. So the mortgage broker will say to the investor, what price are you paying for the property? They'll declare the open market value because they want a no money down deal. So the mortgage broker can hand on heart say, well, nobody told me you were getting a discount on this property. I spoke to a client this week who said that his mortgage broker wouldn't ever put anything in writing if they discussed the discount. The individual would phone them up, and that's another sign. And even he knew that that wasn't right. And the solicitors in the same vein. Quite often there'll be two solicitors involved, one representing the lender, so they can turn around and say, well, that's the price I was told you were paying for it, and then one who represents the client and arranges the cashback or sub-sale element, and they're not representing the lender, so they can say, well, I knew there was a cashback, but I'm not representing the lender. And that's where barrister's opinion often comes in and saying, well, the two individual solicitors aren't breaking any rules, but it still comes back to the client, the applicant who made the application, and them stating what they know not to be true.
Fantastic. So if somebody was offered a no money down deal structure, what would your advice be to them to actually just a really simple inquiry to find out if it's legitimate?
Just the simplest thing is to phone up the lender and to explain to them how the structure is being done, and ask the lender if it's with their approval. Sadly, whenever I recommend that to people, most people say, well, no, I won't do that because I know the lender won't do it. That tells them everything they need to know. And if they go back to any of the three in the chain, normally the deal supplier, the solicitor or the mortgage broker, and say that that's what they're going to do, normally the deal or the offer will get pulled at that stage. So any of these things should be warning signs, because if you go back to them and say, I'm just going to phone the lender and check this is okay, is that all right? And they go into a panic, then what they've told you is probably not true, that it is with lender approval and legitimate.
And I keep hearing this term package deals, which sounds also convenient and easy, but there again, it's almost like it's been wrapped up in a pretty little bow to sort of be forced through in a certain format. It doesn't necessarily mean it's right, though.
That's right, and a big thing with the way these deals are packaged is to make it so easy for the client that all they literally have to do is transfer some money. With all the electronic applications these days, they don't often even have to sign any documents, and unfortunately, because buy-to-let is unregulated, they often don't get any of the proper advice and things either. We actually offer advice on all of our products, even the unregulated ones, so we wouldn't fit into that category, but a lot of brokers operate on that basis. And a lot of solicitors as well. So unfortunately as well, a lot of the solicitors are in a bit of a no-win situation now, because they're being instructed to allow such deals to complete and then to report them for fraud afterwards. So they've got split loyalties with clients and their own governing bodies as well. So people need to be doubly cautious about this sort of thing as well.
Very much so, because the lenders are beginning to clamp down on it a lot more, aren't they? There's a lot more going on behind the scenes in terms of forensic accounting, looking at paper trails to making money trails to make sure that they're legitimate, etc. So I think we need to warn people that, you know, they've got to be very careful and they've got to understand exactly what they're doing. And if they choose to do it, that is their choice, and you and I aren't going to tell them what to do.
Absolutely.
It's a free country, but we want people to understand that if they do something like that, it could be potentially conceived as mortgage fraud, which is a criminal offence. And personally, I like to sleep at night, and
Absolutely.
I want to build a business that's based on sustainable practices, not fraud, really. So have you had any examples of people being caught for mortgage fraud? Because I've seen quite a few.
Yeah, there's been a lot, and more so recently, I've seen a lot of mortgage brokers and solicitors being removed from lender panels, quite a lot. And often it's as a result of having associations with certain packaging companies or certain deal providers, or that the lenders have investigated far enough to know that they suspect, and that's all they have to do is suspect. They don't need any proof. You know, they can just remove you from their panel if they choose to. So quite often clients will find that they're being passed from pillar to post with solicitors or mortgage brokers. Again, that should be a big red flag to people. So there's a lot of that, and also individual investors. In the past, there hasn't been so much against individual investors, mainly because surveyors, solicitors and mortgage brokers all carry indemnity insurance. So those are the ones that the lenders are going to claim against. But they've actually changed their stance now and saying, well, it's actually the investors that benefited from this. And we should start taking action against them, and that's happening all the more. There have been some prison sentences handed down, and for all parties, but you know, more recently for some investors, and I think that's going to increase as this gets more investigated. There's a massive mortgage fraud forum, a body has been set up very recently involving lots of different parties, and all of this is going to, you know, have a major impact on investors going forward.
I think so. I've come across quite a few people that their previous mortgage broker put fraudulent information on their application about their salary and so on, and then the next lender has gone and cross-checked that information, found it to not be concurrent with what they're saying, and won't lend to them anymore. So I think, you know, for new people coming into this, we're just saying to you, please be very, very careful before getting involved in one of these schemes, and fully research it and understand it. And if you've got any doubts, could I say, Lisa, that you'd be happy to talk to people, just to talk them, listen to what the scheme is and see if you can check it for them?
Yeah, more than happy to do that.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thanks, Vanessa.
Lisa's contact details are on the video if you want to get in touch with her, and I hope you found this video about no money down deals enlightening, and yeah, do be very careful before getting involved in such a scheme. Thank you very much for watching.